The marathon is the most demanding event open to the ordinary runner. In the biggest marathons, there are hundreds, often thousands of winners, because anyone who completes the marathon distance of 26 miles, 385 yards is a winner.
The marathon is the ultimate challenge in the Olympic calendar. And when you're in your office or in a pub or at home or something and you say you're going to try it, people say, oh no, you're not. You know, you couldn't do it. And that is a challenge which you can't just go and do tomorrow. You've got to actually sit down and work it out and do some training for 4, 5, 6 months. And it does, I think, really get back to that huge sense of accomplishment, that you've done something that people didn't think you were capable of.
In the autumn, we looked for volunteers to run in the Wolverhampton Marathon in the following spring, on Sunday the 5th of April. 2 runners from Suffolk, Pip and Judy Norris of Bungay, agreed to take up the challenge. So did Norwich runner Terry Eagling, an accountant with a truck manufacturer. Terry had completed 2 marathons, but he was keen to improve his time. But for Pip and Judy, Wolverhampton was to be their first marathon, if they survived the hard slog of a winter's training. So with 26 miles of Wolverhampton streets to cover in about 6 months' time, our 3 volunteer runners buckled down to the unyielding demands of the marathon. Although Judy and Pip are experienced club runners with a number of shorter races behind them, the arrival of Christmas was a reminder that April the 5th was not that far off. Encouraged and helped by fellow members of their club, the Bungay Black Dog Running Club, Judy and Pip mostly relied on their long-held ambition to keep them going.
I've always wanted to do a marathon, but I've never been particularly happy with the thought of committing myself to the time for the mileage. But I'm pleased with the idea of finally getting to grips with it.
I've always wanted to run a marathon, but I've never had the courage either.
A marathon, that is the magical distance. You get a tremendous sense of satisfaction. I think a lot of people can run 10 miles, a few more can run 13. There isn't as many can run 26, and you get this feeling of achievement.
It's got to be a major barrier that I see ahead of me. Possibly not the 26, it's getting past the 20. Everyone always says the first 20 is the first half. It's that point. If I can go past 20, I know I'll make the 26.
I hope to achieve a time of around about the 3.5 hours. I need the times. I need to know the distances that I've run and the times that I've run them in, and to see some improvement, if you like. I won't get much satisfaction out of completing the race in 4.5 hours. I think I could probably do that now, but I will want to train and do sufficient training to get near my time of 3:30.
My time will be under 4 hours, and I would dearly love to see something nearer 3:30. But that's going to be quite a target for me. I'm a wonderful plodder. 3:30 will be hard.
Well, I think we're probably going to set out to run it together. So providing, well, I think anything under 4 hours I'd be well pleased with.
You would do much better than that.
Well, I don't know. It's having never run one before. I think it's a long way and it's unknown territory.
Okay, now as soon as you're around that bag, hit it. Get the momentum early on.
Training for any long-distance event should be varied. Always running at the same pace will get you through, but try tackling hills or short bursts of faster running. Whatever you do, don't go too fast too soon.
It doesn't matter what level you're at. I think you need to progress very gently towards high level of training. And most people start thinking, well, marathon is 26 miles, then I must increase my mileage drastically to get fit enough to cover that distance. If you try and do that too quickly, then you'll break down and you'll end up not running at all. So you need to progress very slowly and very gradually.
I find that I can run 80 miles a week very comfortably without feeling too tired or without suffering from injuries. Other people wouldn't be able to, and I think it's no good someone saying because she does 80 miles a week, I've got to do 80 miles a week. You've got to find your own optimum level.
Then the most important point is not to waste all that hard training by training too hard too close to the event. Actually take a very drastic taper off towards the event so that you're rested when you start the race and not shattered from the training load beforehand.
Really just to take it steadily and not to expect too much too soon.
When you're preparing for a marathon, weather like this will slow you down, but it needn't keep you indoors. After Christmas, Pip and Judy kept up their level of training in conditions that would have tried the resolve of any runner. At this stage, they were doing about 40 to 45 miles a week. They were up to schedule, but spring didn't seem that far away.
April the 5th looks considerably more daunting than it did before Christmas. We'd had a very good run up to Christmas. We've had a very, very successful time. We were both doing a lot of training and both going well. Judy winning races, as always. And
you're running faster than you've ever run before.
yes, I was constantly doing personal bests virtually every time I went out, so it was going very, very well. The snow's made life quite difficult at times. We had 2 or 3 days when, of course, it was impossible to do anything, and now we have to be very careful when we go out. We try our utmost to run hard. We did a long run on Sunday and thought we'd run pretty hard, and when we looked at our time over it, we were really very disappointed. We'd done about just over 8-minute miling, and we usually do our long runs at about 7.5. So we were definitely one pace back for every 2 forward while we did that.
I don't find it very easy to motivate myself in this weather, I must admit. I find it very difficult to get out and do something. But once you're out there, it's not too bad, but it's certainly not going to be fast. All this on our training chart that we're supposed to be doing some fast work, which you just can't in this weather. It's impossible to do anything other than just time on your feet. But providing we don't go down with anything between now and the next few weeks, we should get some good training in. We want to try and build up now to, our longest run so far has been 14 miles, which we've really got to start building that up to getting in a couple of 20s sometime.
No problems. We hope for great things.
For Terry, in Norwich, training continued through the snows of January. By now, he was running about 50 miles a week, sometimes with his club, the Duke Street Runners of Norwich. Terry subjected his training to continuous assessment and analysis, always asking himself how well his training was going.
It's been going well. I gradually built up over Christmas. I had a fortnight's holiday and stepped up the mileage to about 50 a week. I'd done that for 3 weeks, and then just as the snow came, I suffered an injury, and unfortunately I missed the last 8 days training. I went to the physio a couple of times, and he has now assured me that that's okay to start stepping up the mileage again, and from now on I will be building back gradually. I've got a 20-mile race booked at Bury on the 22nd of February, and that will be the real test as to whether I'm up to the mileage.
Determined to keep to his training plan, whatever the weather, Terry was critical of even the slightest deviation from it.
I'm a bit behind the schedule that I've set myself at this point in time. All the people say listen to your body, and as I've got older, I think it's been easier to do, listen to my body. So I don't go out when I've got injuries now, whereas I would have done a few years ago.
I think my experience nowadays is that more people have gone in for running things like the marathons. And I mean, I'm delighted. I think there aren't enough challenges in this world. And the whole point about the marathon is that you might not finish, which is why people do it. So there are bound to be problems and failures coming from that. But I think that too many people start off trying to run the marathon without giving themselves long enough in terms of preparation. they hope to switch from doing nothing to running a marathon in 3 months. It's just not on.
One of the world's greatest marathon runners sets out for work. He's the fastest ever winner of the London Marathon. He's won the Chicago Marathon twice, once in a world record time of 2 hours, 8 minutes and 5 seconds. At the Royal Air Force Repair Base in St Athan in South Wales, he's known as Airframe Technician B8110633 Jones S. To the world of athletics, he's Steve Jones, Britain's top marathon runner.
My training is all planned, I plan it myself. I sit down for a few days and try and plan it for, let's say, the next 6 or 7 weeks. I organise my sort of steady running, which is where I get my miles from, and my interval training, hand in hand sort of thing. My average mileage for a week is anywhere between 90 and 110 miles a week, except for maybe this time of year where it's very muddy and very cold and windy, but it's enjoyable running and it's relaxing running as well. Max amount of miles would be about 22, I think. That would be only on a Sunday, where I do maybe an 18 or 20 in the morning and might have a jog in the afternoon just to record a few miles. On a weekday, the most I do is 20, which is split in 2 runs, with my lunchtime run and my evening run.
It's a highly disciplined life marked by a single-minded determination to excel. Although Steve Jones is competing at the highest level, his approach to preparing for a marathon can be followed by all runners. He puts his success down to a few key factors.
I think it's the training I've done, not just the training I've done. As a type of person I am, I suppose, pretty resilient sort of person that once I start something, I try and finish it through. And I'm a very determined person as well.
That determination and months of hard training brought him the world record in Chicago in 1984.
It was incredible, it was great. I could see the clock. I was going down Home Street and the clock was ticking away quicker than I could pump my arms. I realised then I was on a chance for a record, and I could see the clock, just ticking away.
He returned to Wales a hero. But Steve's programmed himself to train and to compete, and he was soon on his feet again, clocking up the miles. To runners who ask him for advice, Steve's as uncompromising as he is with himself.
I find it very hard to give advice to people. When I was coached and the advice I get, I take 100%. I never question anything I've been told to do in the past regarding my training. And I've given 100%, and my coach gave 100%, and was 20%. And I could never coach anybody not knowing or thinking that they're not giving me 100%.
Advised by squadron leader Alan Warner, Steve plans a season's races. The races are varied, like the training. Running up a heartbreak hill like this 10 times in succession gives Steve the reserve of strength that he relies on to win races and break records.
We've got a 20-mile race on.
Back in Suffolk, Judy and Pip have been training hard, perhaps too hard. If they have a problem, it's mental rather than physical.
Well, again, if you'd spoken to me this time last week, we were both ready to say, stuff it, that's it. Never want to run a marathon. Now we know why we didn't before. The sheer gutty grind of getting out and doing miles for the sake of miles. And I had a lot of problem with a heel, but I've had some injections into that, which have solved the pain anyway. You find it very boring, though, doing the long runs?
Oh,
pretty well. Not very enjoyable. I did 20 for the first time in my life. And in about 2:33, which is much better than I ever expected.
That's very good. Once you've done 20 miles, you really feel the marathon within touching distance, don't you?
It is.
Another 6 miles.
It is.
Around there. The danger in the race is that lots of people start off too fast, and you get drawn along at their pace rather than your own pace.
It really is a bad thing to do, then, is it? Go off too fast.
Yeah, but it really is, because...
By now, in any marathon runner's training, the pattern is set. It's too late to increase the mileage or to make radical changes to the training schedule. But it's never too late to prepare mentally for what is a considerable test of body and spirit.
A major marathon, like the Wolverhampton Marathon, there'll be lots of people, and they'll be getting excited, and you just can't help yourself.
Yeah.
You must hold back in those early miles.
Yeah.
I think the physical aspects, in a sense, are almost the least important part. What is important is the quality of the mind, the tenacity of spirit, the strength of resilience. All of the qualities that make people fabulous people are the kind of qualities that if they're brought to bear in one person and they decide to direct those energies towards achieving success in the marathon, they will succeed. And at the end of the day, it's about the inner qualities. The running can be developed simply by practicing running.
Well, Terry, there's 8 weeks to go now. How are you feeling?
Quite good. That's difficult now because I've started building up the mileage and I look forward to a day off.
Well, that's very important, actually, because you do need to recover in between. You need to be doing the long runs, of course, but you need to recover, otherwise you'll be shuffling along. Are you sleeping all right as well?
Sleeping well, yes.
Oh, that's good.
Trying to get to bed about 9.
Ah.
I get up fairly early in the morning and I do a bit on the exercise bike and the food loosening exercises because I am stiff in the morning sometimes.
Right. You really have to consider 8 weeks is nearer to 6 weeks of preparation, of course, because the last 2 weeks you're going to be really easing down, aren't you?
Yes.
You're taking it very, very easy the last couple of weeks.
That's right. I've got a half marathon booked 2 weeks before, so I hope that will just about be the right distance.
Right, and that will end the main training, won't it?
Yes.
After that half marathon, like a plane coming into land, you'll be easing down towards the ground and the marathon itself.
Yes, they got us down Wednesday, 8 miles.
A typical scene in the Norris household as Pip and Judy fine-tune their next training session. Apart from making sure they're spending enough time on their feet, Pip and Judy have followed a sensible diet with plenty of carbohydrate in their meals. They've increased their liquid intake and they've been getting enough sleep. They're tired after training, but not to the point of exhaustion.
Better get some sleep.
Right.
They look in good shape for Wolverhampton, now only weeks away, because they've disciplined themselves to follow a sound, well-paced training programme. The major components for training for any event, and although we've talked about the marathon, don't forget there's 10 kilometres, there's half marathons, all stepping stones towards a long distance race. The major components include graduated and regular training and recovery. And a lot of people overlook the recovery phase, which is very, very important. You have to allow yourself plenty of time to prepare for a long distance race, but all the time it's graduated, it's regular, and you recover in between. And eventually you're ready for the day when you will stand on the starting line of your race. Sunday the 5th of April, and over 6,000 runners gather in a rainy Wolverhampton to run in the first major marathon of the season. The elite runners will battle it out for a better time, a higher placing, but this is a people's marathon for the citizen runner, and amongst them are Pip, Judy and Terry, who are out to prove that they're a match for the marathon.
Thank heavens, all that training all over the winter, and at long last we've made a start.
It was great to be finally off, but my main concern was not to run too fast in the early stages.
We were just approaching the mile mark, and my main interest at that stage was that I was running at the pace I'd set myself.
This was at 7 miles, and I was still running within myself and having a wonderful time, thoroughly enjoying the crowds and the atmosphere.
By now I was feeling considerably less cocky than I had earlier on. I was feeling the pace just a little bit. I thought we'd probably gone off too fast.
At about 9 miles I was feeling good, and I was particularly pleased because I'd dropped a half a minute earlier on and I'd now made that up. I'd made a point of taking a drink at every feeding station, and water never tasted so good.
We were coming up to the halfway mark at this stage, and really I was starting to feel in pain. Judy had started to pull away, and I knew I was going to be in trouble. Distinctly worried at the thought of all that training, and would it be successful?
Just over the halfway mark, and still enjoying myself and feeling strong, but I was worried about Pip.
Well into the second half of the race at this point, and I was really struggling. I didn't really expect it to be this hard.
How you doing? How's it going so far?
We're going to suffer about
6 miles.
16.
16.
I started to cramp up in the car, but nothing seemed to gone off now.
Is it okay now?
Yeah.
There's no problems at all?
No.
No blisters?
No.
No cramps?
Well, Vaseline.
Well, Vaseline? Yeah. Okay, if you get any other problems, you can slide the rest of the way. Yeah, okay. I'll see you at the end. All the best, Terry.
Running the distance at her planned speed, 7.5 minutes a mile, Judy was having an enjoyable, trouble-free race. Further back in the field, Pip wasn't faring so well. After 18 miles, we realised he'd made a tactical error in starting out too fast. When this happens, it's tempting to give up. Pip was determined to press on, but he still had another gruelling 8 miles to go.
I think a lot of people can run 10 miles. A few more can run 13. There isn't as many can run 26, and you get this feeling of achievement.
I've always wanted to run a marathon. I've never had the courage either. I'm not too sure how easy it's going to be.
It's got to be a major barrier that I see ahead of me. Possibly not the 26, it's getting past the 20. Everyone always says the first 20 is the first half. It's that point. If I go past 20, I know I'll make the 26.
The first of our trio to finish, Terry Eagling in 3 hours, 12 minutes.
I found the last 2 miles were much harder, but I was keeping to my plan. When I saw the clock, I knew that the time would be the best yet. But what pleased me most was that I had run every step of the way.
Encouraged by the crowds, Judy finished strongly to find she'd done far better than expected.
The finish at last, I couldn't believe it. Here I was actually going to finish my very first marathon, and then to see the clock, 3:21, unbelievable, so much faster than I thought possible. And then to find out I was 7th woman overall, absolutely fantastic.
Judy, you did it.
I did it.
How do you feel?
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Oh, I'm so thrilled, and I was faster than I ever thought I could be. And
What was the worst part of it?
Round about 22, I wasn't really hurting, I just didn't want to run anymore. I was just fed up with the whole business. There didn't seem anybody around me or anything.
Was there any point that you think you weren't going to finish?
No.
Terry, great, you did it. How do you feel now?
Relieved. That was hard.
You don't seem as excited as Judy. Is it inward excitement, or is it because you've been here before and it's not quite the same the second time?
No, I think I'd set a plan. I was just about to plan, and great, yes.
Well, what was it like coming across the line, the finish line? Can you remember the moment?
Fantastic. The crowds were cheering and $1 million.
When can you do another one?
In about 20 years.
And now what are you going to do to celebrate?
Big bath, I think.
Like the bottle of wine we didn't have last night.
The bottle of wine you didn't have last night, right. And we've got to wait for Pip as well. We don't know what the news of Pip at the moment. He was walking when we last saw him.
Meanwhile, Pip was still out on the streets of Wolverhampton, striving to reach his predicted time.
26 miles gone. They have to make the last 385 yards all uphill towards the finish. But the crowds were fantastic and helped me along enormously. Not quite the finish I might have hoped for when I started training 6 months ago, but I'm going to get under 4 hours, and that's marvellous.
Realised why I hadn't made the Lancashire team, because they were so strong that, you know, most of the England team was the Lancashire team. So I made the England team as well in that year, 62. And
Leslie's been established amongst marathon runners since the early 70s. Most of her 100-plus marathons have been completed in under 3 hours. To maintain this standard, she puts in at least